As we continue our special coverage, we'll discuss the latest developments in the United States and new remarks from US President Donald Trump. Then, moving on to Lebanon, remarks from President Donald Trump were as follows. President Donald Trump told Just the News on Sunday morning that he will designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a foreign terrorist organization, striking a blow against a group long blamed for destabilizing the Middle East and radicalizing young Muslims. It will be done in the strongest and most powerful terms, Trump reported, and said final documents are being drawn. The president's announcement came just days after Just the News published a long expose on the Muslim Brotherhood's activities and growing concerns inside the Trump administration. Trump has been considering the move since his first administration. And now we are moving on now to a special coverage where we start on with the latest developments in the United States with remarks from US President Donald Trump. Donald Trump told Just the News on Sunday morning that he will designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a foreign terrorist organization, striking a blow to the group long blamed for destabilizing the Middle East and radicalizing young Muslims. It will be done, quote Trump, it will be done in the strongest and most powerful terms, Trump said. Final documents are being drawn. The president's announcement came just days after Just the News published a long expose on the Muslim Brotherhood activities and growing concerns inside the Trump administration. Trump has been considering the move since his first administration. And now, and for further analysis on the U.S. administration and the U.S. President Trump comments, we are joined from Cairo by researcher and political Islamist movements, Amr Farouk. A very warm welcome to the program and a very warm welcome to Qnews and for your time, sir. Sir, how do you view Trump's announcement of his intention to designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization?
Designating the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist group is something that Trump has been looking to do either in his first period or the second here. And even though there were positive reactions to these statements, but actually here this decision may face a number of challenges because this decision is not a political one, but it is actually from a security point of view, and it needs so much to actually approve it, and we need the foreign ministry and the finance ministry to accept it, and then we need the Congress to pass it as well, and then it needs to go to the judicial sector and to have it go down the federal.
Sir, are you with or against the decision made by U.S. President Donald Trump, which he wanted to do since his first, of course, the occurrence and presence in the White House in 2016?
Yeah, of course, I agree with it. I am a researcher here, and I am against using religion to make politics work. But here I'm just analyzing. I'm not saying my opinion and how hard it is to take it because of so many things, and this is actually founded on a new research or a new study from the Washington Central and yeah, this decision will actually have consequences with the U.S. government, with some countries that support brotherhood, like Britain, and it is actually their center. It's where they work from, and now it is. Um, it's still supporting them and hosting them after they left Egypt. And yeah, this actually may have consequences, as I said, because there is no brotherhood in the USA, and maybe some facilities or authorities. Um, Organizations can be classified or designated as terrorists, and so yeah, we're saying that Brotherhood has more than 400 organizations in the US, and 10 of them are major that under them we have smaller organizations, and they have very tight relationships with influential organizations. And yeah, even when the Democrats have used the Brotherhood to influence the electoral process, and some of them actually were working in the U.S. Government, like the National Security Authority in
Okay, sir,
America.
got your point when it comes to the internal position of the United States. How do you see the impact of this decision on the situation in the entire Middle East, sir?
Uh, if they were actually designated a terrorist organization, then yeah, maybe it is the right decision that yeah, we've been long waiting for. It is time. We need to lift the political, media, and financial support for this organization, and even in Europe, because this decision may allow some of the European countries to make the same decision. And we're saying that the brotherhood relationship with the West, maybe yeah, there've been some countries were supporting them, but actually we know that the brotherhood has been using a fake rhetoric and a soft one, so that they can slither their way into the organizations and administrations. But actually, as we know, in countries like Germany, they actually refuse having them, and we have tons of affidavits that says that they are now in the US and have plans to take over places in the Middle East and to take over the media as well. And at the same time, they have taken over the support and the financial support that comes from the West. And it is actually a very important um, way of income or source of income, but they have taken over this. And this organization is always using them in large investment projects, and they are basically getting stronger. And so any organization to be able to actually spread their point of view, they need to have lots of support, financial and international. And so yes, the West, one of the information centers, have actually given the brotherhood some kind of influence, because they kind of support them, and they have very tight relationships with some of the experts. After they left their work, they have talked and actually published reports that they have
Got
had
your point,
relationships.
sir. Thank you. Is it possible for the group to commit any acts of violence in the United States in response to this designation?
Yeah, I can see it coming, because they are now basically they basically hate the U.S. government now, and maybe they will be targeting some of the USA benefits in the Middle East or in the West, because the Brotherhood are actually the main source of all the military organizations in the Middle East. And so, yeah, this is very natural that they will have a response. And I think that things like these are actually what influenced the decisions, what will influence the decisions. As I said, this is not a political decision, but it is actually because of so many other things, and they will be the things that determine if this decision will pass or not. And yeah, this will show us how violent they are and how extreme they're willing to go, whether response attacking or targeting the USA project in the Middle East, or even in the USA itself. And so, yeah, I think maybe they will be even targeting some officials. As I said, yeah, it is very likely to happen, because the
Targeting
decision is.
officials? That's escalating a long way. That was Amr Farouk from Cairo, the researcher in the political Islamist movements. Thank you very much for joining us on Q News, your informative knowledge, and for your time and intellectual knowledge, sir. Earlier, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has announced that the United States is working to designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization. Speaking on a New York radio show, Rubio described the group as concerning, noting it has multiple branches. He explained that the designation will be intently requiring thorough investigations and separate assessments for each branch. Rubio emphasized that the United States is gathering evidence to support the classification, warning that without sufficient proof, the Brotherhood could legally challenge the designation in court. And now we move on to the latest developments in Lebanon.
كل المستهدفين هن مدنيين. وضع شيء مرعب، شيء بخوف.
Israeli sources reported that senior Hezbollah commander Al-Tabtabai was the figure targeted by the Israeli occupation in Beirut's southern suburb. Media outlets described Al-Tabtabai, known as Abu Ali, as the second in command in the party after Deputy Secretary General Naim Qasim. Initial information indicates that Tabtabai holds a high-level military position with Hezbollah and has previously held military responsibilities in Syria and Yemen. The Israeli army carried out an airstrike on Haret Hariq area in Beirut, targeting Tabtabai, who's known as Abu Ali, his nickname. The Lebanese Ministry of Health announced that 5 persons were killed and 28 others were injured as a result of the Israeli airstrike on Beirut's southern suburb. The Israeli government stated that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered the operation in Beirut's southern suburb, noting that Hezbollah is actively working to violate the understandings between Israel and Lebanon. Israel's Channel 12 reported that authorities have not changed the instructions for residents of northern Israel following the assassination operation in Beirut's southern suburb. Hebrew media, citing a security official, stated that missile defense systems have been placed on high alert following the attack in Beirut. Lebanese President Joseph Aoun affirmed that Israel's targeting of the southern suburb is yet another indication that it disregards repeated calls to halt its assaults. Aoun called on the international community to intervene to stop Israel's attacks on Lebanon in order to prevent any escalation that could reignite tension in the region. He renewed his call for the international community to assume its responsibility and intervene firmly and seriously to put an end to the aggression against Lebanon. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel will continue targeting Hezbollah and Hamas in response to ceasefire violations. Netanyahu said Israel continues to target terrorism on multiple fronts, noting that the Israel Defense Forces struck in Lebanon over the weekend and will take all necessary measures to prevent Hezbollah from rebuilding its capacity to threaten the country. The Israeli Air Force carried out airstrikes against Hezbollah position across Lebanon and killed 2 members of the group in drone strikes in the country's south. For further analysis, we're joined from Nazarat by political science professor Dr. Suhail Diab. Welcome to Qnews. Sir, with Israel asserting it's eliminated Hezbollah's deputy leader Haytham Tabtabi, does this action signal a fresh stage of conflict or the unraveling of last year's ceasefire?
Hello to everyone. Actually, is under the umbrella of the Israeli strategy that is happening now after the truce, after the truce that they approved. Under pressure now they are using a new strategy from on one hand they don't want to go to a full-on war and a genocide like what was happening in the last 2 years, but at the same time they don't want to advance with the to implement the 1701 and 2803 in the and so they are actually stalling in phase 1 so that they cannot go to phase the second phase or the next phase, and actually then Israel will lose its control either in Lebanon or in Gaza. And so the main goal here from this escalation, the main goal is because of what because the Lebanese army and the Lebanese government aren't doing enough to disarm Hezbollah, and this is a pretext that they have used quite a lot actually in the Gaza Strip and in Lebanon too. And the proof here is if the matter was really about Hezbollah's arms or Hamas arms, then what's happening, for example, in Syria, the Syrian regime in Syria, are they threatening the Israeli security and stability? Is there even a Syrian army that threatens Israel? So why are they having aggressions and operations, releasing statements, and they have actually reached the borders of Syria? And so, and yeah, what's happening also in the West Bank, that there is no Hamas there or Hezbollah there. Is to be the country in control and the only country in control of the Middle East. They don't want Iran, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, or any other Arab country to compete with them when it comes to a military force. And then they also want to settle the Palestinian cause once and for all. and to do everything that it can and more, so that they cannot reach a two-state solution. And then they want also some kind of buffer zones, and they are calling them buffer zones in the Arab countries in Lebanon, Syria, West Bank, and the Gaza Strip. And if they can do it even in Jordan and Egypt too. So yes, they want these buffer zones so that they can be a strategic depth where they can build a greater Israel from the Nile to Farad. And so yeah, we
Okay.
need to see the escalation for what it is. They are trying to provoke the Lebanese government, the Lebanese army, and the people in Lebanon in general by igniting a new civil war or any kind of discrimination in Lebanon through which Israel can slither to reach its final goals.
Sir, how do you read the credibility and honesty of Israel's claim that Hezbollah is reconstructing its military strength, given Beirut's insistence that the group is abiding by the truce?
السؤال غير واضح إذا ممكن إعادة.
Sir, how credible, or how do you read the credibility and the honesty of Israel claiming that Hezbollah is reconstructing its military strength, given Beirut's insistence that the group is abiding by the truce?
النقطة الأولى
Actually, we need to know two things. Israel is exaggerating when in how they make the other parties look, like Hamas, Hezbollah, and any other country, actually, like what they did with or in Iraq.
مشاركة الولايات
With the US, when the US entered Iraq, and they said that there are chemical weapons and nuclear weapons and so on. And the same thing happened when they entered Libya in Gaddafi era. They actually pictured Iraq and Libya as if they are an actual threat to the whole Middle East. And so I think that we need to pay very close attention to this. They are always exaggerating on their media and so on when it comes to what Hezbollah and Hamas are actually capable of. And so this is all in the sake of keeping the war going and the aggressions, and never reaching a solution. And second point here is, if Israel thinks that they can have such aggressions, occupation, incursions, assassinations without having a response, they are wrong. Actually, it doesn't have to do with this organization or this. In the 80s, when Israel entered Lebanon, there was Lebanese resistance in the south, and they actually got Israel out of the country back then, and Hezbollah wasn't there at the time. There was no Hamas as well. And and it's the same in other regions.
So you read,
and
sir, that Israel is exaggerating, considering the strike struck a heavily populated residential block in Haret Hirik, sir. Is Israel now explicitly targeting Hezbollah figures within civilian areas? Considering, sir, that the strike struck a heavily populated residential block in Haret Hirik, is Israel now explicitly targeting Hezbollah figures within civilian areas?
رأيي إنه كل الوقت قامت
I think that they have been attacking officials, Arab and Islamic officials, and scientists, and so on. And there was actually a book that they published in 2018, talking about some kind of reporter, but they have to do with the with Israel, and they talked about the Israeli assassinations. There are hundreds of assassinations that happened for decades now, that have been happening for decades, and a part of what Israel believes in is political assassinations, individual assassinations, assassinating researchers, and so on in Arab countries, Islamic countries, and even in other countries that support the Islamic countries. And so we cannot talk or say that the political assassinations are in vain. No, they actually help in destabilizing the scene. And yeah, Israel couldn't even for once to get a benefit out of assassinating. Um, they couldn't assassinate a person to reach a political solution, and there are resources in Israel saying that they could have found any solutions after lots of assassinations that they have carried out. Yeah, Israel didn't do this. They actually got more aggressive and had more advanced steps and operations, and this actually lost them their right to reaching a solution after that. And so, yes, the political assassinations up till now have actually benefited Israel internally, and they have told some steps from outside, but they did not turn into actual strategic wins.
Thank you very much, Dr. Suhail Diab, the political science professor. Thank you for joining us on Q News. Thank you for your informative knowledge and adding value to our program and your time, sir. Now we move on to the latest developments in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Yes, President Donald Trump has criticized Ukraine and European nations on Sunday for what he described as a lack of gratitude for American efforts in the ongoing war in Russia. Trump said on Truth Social that Ukraine's leadership has shown no gratitude for U.S. efforts while Europe continues to purchase oil from Russia and the United States continues supplying large amounts of weapons to NATO for distribution to Ukraine. Trump also reiterated his view that strong U.S. and Ukrainian leadership could have prevented the conflict, claiming it escalated under President Joe Biden's administration. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has said that he will hold a phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Monday to discuss efforts to achieve peace in Ukraine and to request the reopening of the Black Sea grain corridor. Speaking at a press conference following the G20 summit, Erdogan emphasized Turkey's role in facilitating peace, citing previous meetings with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky and efforts to secure safe passage for grain exports. He added that he will share the outcomes of the talks with European leaders, U.S. President Donald Trump and other allies, and stressed the need to explore steps to prevent further loss of life in the conflict. That brings us to the end of our news bulletin, but before we wrap up, here's a recap of the top stories making headlines this hour. For stories and live updates, follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at QNewsEG. From all of us here and all the team, thank you very much for watching our special coverage, and stay tuned for more news and analysis on Q News. And until then, it's goodbye.